The dense woodland stretched endlessly under the pale glow of the waning moon, its skeletal branches clawing at the sky like fingers of the damned. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it a scent of decay, something old, something forgotten. The woods had always been a place of whispered legends, stories passed down through generations, warnings not to venture too far past the safety of the village. It began with a body. The discovery was accidental. A lone hiker had strayed from the marked path, drawn by the inexplicable sensation of being watched. His steps had crunched through dead leaves and brittle twigs, the silence around him unsettling. Then he had seen it. Half buried beneath a thick layer of decomposing foliage, the corpse stared upward with empty sockets, its mouth open in a frozen scream. The body had been mutilated beyond recognition, its torso carved with deep, deliberate gashes, the flesh missing in places, exposing the stark white of bone. The authorities were called. They arrived in the dead of night, their flashlights cutting through the thick fog that had begun to settle. The air smelled of damp earth and something more sinister. Officers with hardened faces exchanged uneasy glances as they examined the remains. There were no clear signs of struggle, no footprints in the damp soil, no indication of how the victim had gotten there. It was as if the body had simply materialized from the very ground itself. Further inspection revealed something worse. The wounds were not random. They formed a pattern, an ancient symbol, one that only a handful of scholars could decipher. It was a mark associated with rituals, sacrifices, and things that lurked beyond the realm of human comprehension. The investigation began with urgency. The villagers were questioned, their eyes darting nervously, lips pressed tightly together. No one wanted to speak of the old stories, of the shadows that danced just beyond the edge of the trees at dusk, but fear was a living thing in their gazes. They knew something. More bodies followed. Days later, another was found. Then another, each mutilated in the same grotesque fashion, each bearing the same markings carved into their flesh. The authorities struggled to keep up, their theories growing more desperate. Was it the work of a deranged killer? A cult performing unholy rites? Or something worse, something they dared not name? Despite the growing unease, the woods remained eerily silent, as if mocking the efforts to uncover its secrets. No animals scurried through the underbrush. No birds called from the treetops. It was a place devoid of life, save for the restless dead. Then came the footprints. Deep in the forest, where even the bravest refused to tread, the investigators found a set of prints too large to be human, yet too defined to belong to any known animal. They were uneven, as if the creature had walked on elongated limbs, dragging something heavy behind it. The tracks led deeper into the woods, vanishing abruptly near an ancient tree, gnarled and twisted with age. The tree was unlike any other in the forest. Its bark was dark, almost black, with strange carvings etched deep into its surface. The markings matched those found on the bodies. A sense of unease settled upon the lead investigator. He reached out hesitantly, fingers brushing against the rough bark. The moment he touched it, a sharp electric sensation coursed through him. A vision flashed before his eyes, of blood dripping onto the earth, of figures clad in tattered robes, chanting in a language not meant for human tongues. He staggered back, gasping for air. He knew then that the answer lay beneath the tree. The excavation began the following morning. A team of specialists arrived, their equipment gleaming under the weak sunlight. They dug cautiously, shovels piercing the damp soil, revealing layers of history long buried. Hours passed. Then, at last, they found it. A mass grave, and bones, hundreds of them, tangled together in a chaotic embrace. Skulls with gaping mouths, as if they had died screaming. The remains were old, centuries at least, but something about them felt wrong, too well preserved, as if time had merely paused instead of erasing their existence. And then they heard it. A whisper, low, guttural, rising from the very earth itself. It seeped into their ears, curling around their minds like tendrils of smoke. It spoke of hunger, of longing, of unfinished rituals. The air grew thick, suffocating. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, stretching toward the team like grasping hands. Panic set in. The lead investigator ordered an immediate evacuation, but it was too late. The first scream shattered the silence. One of the diggers convulsed violently before collapsing, his eyes wide with unspeakable terror. His skin blackened, veins bulging as if something inside him was trying to claw its way out. The others tried to run, but the forest had already awakened. The trees moved, branches twisting, roots coiling around ankles, pulling them down into the hungry earth. One by one they vanished, their screams swallowed by the endless night. By morning, nothing remained of the excavation site except the tree, standing solemn and unscathed as it had for centuries. The villagers did not ask about the missing investigators. They knew the woods had claimed them, as it had many before. The authorities closed the case. The official report cited an unidentified wild animal as the cause of the deaths. No further investigations were conducted. The woods were declared off-limits, a warning placed at its entrance. But the villagers knew the truth. The woods were not empty. They never had been. And somewhere deep beneath the ancient tree, the whispers continued, waiting,